So, are you curious?
Welcome to the Curiosity Codex. I am your ardent enthusiast, Kyle Olson. Even though this show is young, I was already starting to feel constrained by the format. So I took a step back and decided to focus less on trying to fit my topics into the structure I built. Instead, I would let the topic tell me how I should approach it. We all know Hollywood is not always the place for new, fresh ideas. They want what's worked in the past, and it saves them the time and energy of explaining what something is if you already know the name attached to it. We've seen sequels, remakes, homages, but lately there's been something different emerging. There's a trend in modern filmmakers looking back on classic movies from the 80s and 90s and making loving, almost reverential sequels to them. They're not just cashing in on a brand with a high Q rating, but treating these movies as sacred texts. Their movies are about praising what came before while also trying to add their own words to the lore. So this chapter of the Codex is entitled
Weaponized Nostalgia.
I knew I didn't have the perspective to approach this on my own, so instead of a lecture, I needed to have a conversation. And joining me for this discussion are podcast impresario, Pete Wright.
Also running for Grand Poobah of the Screen Actors Guild.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Announced here live. Wow, this is amazing. Like, we got a hot scoop. This is amazing. And also joining us, my good luck charm, Mr. Rob Kubasko.
Oh, I wish I were pocketable, but I'm not. I mean, that would be better. You could just, if you put a screw in me on one end with a loop, then you could attach me to things, but it would be tough to drive.
Very big screw.
Well, I mean, I have a few things I can say. I'm going to pass on all of them.
I just show you the door, yes. Rob. You have to walk through it.
So what we're talking about basically is all these, like, and we were discussing before we even started recording about there's not really a name for what this is yet. So requel, the midquel, like the redo, all these kind of things. But I kind of think of Ghostbusters Afterlife and Matrix Resurrections being on the opposite ends of this spectrum, where it's sort of like one is sort of reverential to the source material and the other one is not, but in a very different kind of way. So let's
okay,
start.
Kyle, rule set first. What are your rules around spoilers? Are we?
We're full on. We're going to talk about everything here. So if you've not seen all of these movies, essentially, expect that there will be some spoilers in here. So yes, we're going to everything is available and on the table, and that includes any movies that happens to come up in your thoughts as we're discussing these things.
Yes.
So this is as nerdy as we want to be. Okay, so let's talk about originally about Ghostbusters. Okay, so what for both of you? I guess I'll start with that. What was your exposure originally to Ghostbusters, and what are your feelings about it now as you've approached it? Because we're all about the same age, so we all, I think, experienced Ghostbusters at about the same time. So Pete, we'll start with you.
Okay, big fan of Ghostbusters. Loved the first movie very much. Saw it in the theater. Come from a family of mom and dad that love movies, and so I'm the kid who my dad would come in and say, "Hey, there's a new Star Trek that's releasing today, or a new James Bond. Are you feeling sick today? You might have a fever." And we would take off school to go see opening day movies, and so that's that. So Ghostbusters. It was absolutely an opening night movie. We were already big fans, certainly of the cast, and so I am an enthusiastic supporter of Ghostbusters. I also loved Ghostbusters 2. I think the Rick Moranis character is fantastic and funny. I think that the why for you. That character, I can't remember who played him, but he went on to be on Ally McBeal for a number of years. I love him.
Peter McNichol.
Peter McNichol, of course. Peter McNichol's addition to this show was fantastic. So I feel like it was fine, not as good as the first, and the rest have been kind of in that zone. Any other dips into Ghostbusters? I never really followed any of the animated stuff. Okay. And so that was I just didn't go that far. So leading into the final one, the reason I saw it, knowing that I already had a middling to fair relationship with everything since 2, the reason I saw it was because of Reitman, and because I saw that trailer and I thought this is going to be interesting filmmaking. And I am thrilled to say I was right about that. It was an exuberant theater going experience. I thought it was just straight up beautiful, just practice of the art of film. And I'm curious how you guys weigh in on the last act. It becomes like, I love the new cast. I love the kids. I love the exploration of the tools and technology. I didn't feel like any of that was overwrought at all. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then we meet the original Ghostbusters and Ghost Egon. Yeah. And I'm middling to fair on that.
Yeah, I want to get to that point. Yeah. I'm trying to establish a baseline for where we're at with our Ghostbusters fans before we sort of really get into a movie that was kind of aimed at us. Specifically, like we were dead center for the demographic, which is what I'm so fascinated by. All right, so Rob, what is your Ghostbusters history, and are you afraid of any ghosts?
No. All of my encounters have been sublime, so I am good. That's another story for another day. But except for that time in Jamaica. But again, another story, another day. Okay, so 84. I'm 7th grade, like middling 7th grade, right? I am post my Star Wars fascination because I don't think it seemed cool at that point, just the year after Jedi comes out. Mm-hmm. And I remember all 4 of us, my mother, my father, my brother John, we go to see the movie. Already was a big fan of Bill Murray. I had known of the movie Stripes, but I knew it was not a movie that I could see right yet, but I knew of it. And I know my dad and I watched the ABC television presentation of it multiple times, right? So kind of had a fascination to this. All I can remember from that movie, I can literally remember coming out of the theater and going, I just saw a movie that was amazing. I love this. I want to be a Ghostbuster. I laughed. I thought it was incredible. I just saw a movie with my parents where dickless was said, a blowjob was implied, and let's say semi-rough nudity with Gozer, right? In that, like I remember my mother talking on the phone, like after we saw it, and she's explaining it, I think, to her sister, and like, the movie is very funny. I laughed very much, but there is a little bit of nudity that is implied. And I always stuck with me, for middle-aged parents at that time, they're like, this is pretty funny. 80s, right? Just give it that blanket. I was so into it that I remember personally drawing the logo, and I got it so perfect that I got my dad to go, when he went to work, to photocopy it so I could put it on the book covers of my 7th grade textbooks.
Wow.
And I will just say that it was all of us, like all my friends, we were all Ghostbusters. That was it. When Stranger Things kind of touches on this, that's real. If you lived it at that age, that fascination, that absolute from 0 to 100, this is a thing that I am going to adore. That was real. Ghostbusters 2, I'm in high school now. This is like I think it's my senior year. 89 is Ghostbusters 2?
I think that's right,
Yeah, 5 years later. I was amused by it. I just remember thinking the Statue of Liberty really kind of soured my seriousness of it, but I loved everything else about it. And then, always was fascinated with, I never really got into, like what Pete just said, never really got into the animated stuff, but I thought the characters, the fact that there were action figures, because that was the only toys that had come out. So that was amazing, because they didn't do anything for the original movie in either first 2 movies in the 80s. That was cool. Listen, I had high hopes. I was very positive about the reboot, and that did not work. There are a few things in it that worked. A lot of things did not. One moment in it works, right? For me. And then this, I am ready. I was just ready to embrace, for 2 points, I'm ready to embrace a reverential treatment of this. Because, like I said, for those of you who grew up with it, this was something, you can't treat all these reboots or rehashes or whatever the word is we're going to come up with. You can't treat them all the same, because they're not all the same source thing.
No, exactly.
Ghostbusters is something else. One movie spawns more love and affection, from cosplaying to models to everything, music. It hit everything. That you cannot underestimate what that happened in the year of 1984. That hit on all the stuff. We all listened to Ghostbusters, the soundtrack, all the time.
Yes.
I had that on cassette tape. I loved it. I wore the tape out. So I mean, there is a reverential treatment to this, and as we are all approaching our middle ages, here's the deal. My dad always says this: his generation had model trains. Our generation has pop culture in a way that no other generations had it before.
Yes,
we are now at the age of we want all the rememberies. We have a little bit of disposable income to feed the urges to react and connect to those rememberies. And so I was ready. And then here's the second part. My second point is, then you also had the whole other second issue with Afterlife, which is how do you deal with Harold Ramis?
Yes.
And what do you do with that? And what do you do to be reverential in a way that probably Harold Ramis is an incredible talent, an incredible loss to entertainment. But like, we are treating this, we are putting Ghostbusters on a pedestal that it probably does not belong on.
Yes.
But that's okay. It's us.
Yeah.
Fine. We do the things we want. I cannot tell you guys, Ghostbusters Afterlife is the only movie that I saw more than twice last year.
Wow. Is that number 3 times?
Four. Actually, four
times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that says something. No, actually, 3 times in the theater.
Okay.
And then my 4th time is
just curious.
Yeah, no. Good. Yeah.
I say I've only seen it the once. So
I mean, I'm all in. It is maybe the greatest example, I think, of really speaking to us and what we love and what we want. And yes, those things that we love and we want, they're way beyond the actual facts of what that 1984 movie represents.
Yeah.
It's grown to something much bigger than that. There, I've said enough. I love it. I love to hear what you guys think.
So Ghostbusters, for the same thing for me. It hit not only me, but like my entire fan friends, all that kind of stuff. It was a generational earthquake where that's what all anyone wanted to talk about. It was like, have you seen it? When are we going back? You know, can we go to the mall again? Can we do this? I think I'm slightly younger than you two, so I actually really got into the cartoon. So like I was a big fan of real Ghostbusters and I watched every episode. I couldn't even watch Filmation's Ghostbusters with the talking monkey and the flying car.
Oh dear.
Okay.
I'm aware of it. Wow.
We're
weird licensing of thing. That's why it's the real Ghostbusters, because it turns out they had the rights to name their movie that, but they didn't, because they had taken it from another movie, but they didn't have the rights to do it for anywhere else. Then the same thing. The sequel came out and it was like, okay. Yeah, I mean, it had some moments, and it's nice to see all 4 guys together. And like you said, Louis Tully actually getting something to do. That was really nice to do. And then, it was things that it never went away. Like the cartoon ended and the movies were done, and the guys were still around, but they were not making any Ghostbusters movies. But it was one of those things that just kept going on. Like it stayed in the public consciousness. There was always the same joke. He slimed me, and like all this is just sunk into the DNA. And so then when they decided to do, obviously the video game came out, and the video game was actually great because it was really the last time that all those guys got to portray the Ghostbusters together, written by the people, performed by all of the main actors. I say, if you're not a video gamer, if you go on to YouTube, people have actually compiled all the cinematics together along with stuff. You can watch like a brand new, essentially 4-hour Ghostbusters movie written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, starring all 4 of those guys, plus a bunch of other voice cameos that are really fun to do.
And I don't remember my, like, I played through the entire game, and my sense memory of it is I loved it. I don't remember how the gameplay holds up, but I had a great time.
The gameplay's a little rough because it's the Xbox 360 era, so it's a lot of like collecting collectibles, which really have no, and a lot of sort of shaky mechanics. There's a lot of like when they get to the slime tether and you have to like connect ghosts to things and slam them against each other. It can get really, really frustrating. And they just re-released it sort of when they thought Ghostbusters Afterlife was going to be coming out a couple of years ago, and it holds up all right. Like, but the gameplay part of it is the part that has not aged extremely well. But the cinematics look great, and it's just nice to be. You play the 5th Ghostbuster, so it's really interesting to be running along, and you're not Venkman, you're not Winston. They're with you. So like they're talking to you, your character, so you get to hear a lot of them just sort of like, nice job, rookie, because your character's name is Rookie, and so you actually get to hear them, and you can hear Egon complimenting you, and it's like, oh, as a 10-year-old boy, this is my dream. Wait, Venkman's giving me like advice. This is great.
I'm doing great.
So then it sort of was quiet for a while, and then they decided to do the reboot. And so we can talk a little bit about the reboot thing, because the idea was fine. Let's take funny people and put them in the same situation and see what happens. And then that's when you find out how bizarre Ghostbusters the movie really was, because you can have the same formula and it doesn't work. And it's like, and I don't really know why. Like, I don't hate that movie like a lot of people do. I bought it. I own it. I've watched every version that has come out of it. I guess the main thing is it's not funny. Right, so like they did a good job in terms of the special effects and like that kind of stuff. But it, like, I just watched it and I'm like, why? Like, as opposed, I know that not every scene in Ghostbusters is fantastic, but even the psychic scene, like where he's like doing all this stuff to, like showing all the symbols and that kind of stuff, it's still a pretty funny scene. But like, if I have to hear her talk about wontons one more time, like, what? But I mean, I'd say this is my personal taste. Like, I just don't like that. Let's turn the camera on and let funny people walk around in the scene and be funny, and then we'll just cut it all together. Right. Because I usually find that like there's a lot of stuff you could just chop right out of this and no one would care. We don't need to get big into things. But what were your thoughts on the Ghostbusters Answer the Call?
This is the 2016. Yes. And I
love Paul Feig. I think Paul Feig is fantastic. It's just, sometimes the chemistry doesn't work.
Sometimes it doesn't. And sometimes you're right. It's that turn on the camera and put funny people in these uniforms, and we just have expectations of hilarity. And I think the problem is, and why I think this ties directly into conversation with Reitman's Ghostbusters, is that there was no anchor for me into the nostalgia that was Ghostbusters. And the Reitman answer to that is focus on the kids. Because when I see Ghostbuster, you made a comment earlier about how this film is targeted at us. But it's not at us now. It's at our internal head clock of us when we were in the 7th grade watching this movie. Yeah. And for me, I am those kids, right? I am those kids discovering Ghostbusters for the first time, just like they are, finding the traps and playing chess with a ghost. And that's who I'm connected to. And that's what made that movie special when it's compared to the rehash of Ghostbusters, just making it and thinking that it's enough to put funny people in the uniforms again. There was no anchor to anything else. And there's a lot of it that is funny, but it just doesn't feel like it wasn't my Ghostbusters movie.
Yeah. Is that because the anchor should have been the universe that 84 and 89 exist in? Like,
theoretically, if this crew was set in 2016, like in Chicago, it's later on, but it's like they had heard about what happened in New York, and so they started their own group in there, but they're still like the Ghostbusters are around somewhere, but they're the next sort of like the newest crew. Would you have you think it would have done better?
You know what's funny about that? I'm sorry, Rob, go ahead. But you just, as you are apt to do, sir, you fix things that are wrong. And I think you just made Ghostbusters the story of going from one Ghostbusters unit in New York to a franchise. And that's funny.
Well, and it's funny. Paul Feig has talked about that's where he was going with it. Like, he wanted to go, let's go international. All we've ever seen are ghosts in New York. What are ghosts in LA like? What are ghosts in Paris like?
That would be really funny.
Well, you know what I think is sad is, and look, here's the thing about the 2016 Ghostbusters is, take away all the venom that was going on around about this. I enjoy the special effects.
Please don't bring venom into this.
Right.
I see what you mean. Go ahead. Yeah.
The special effects are amazing. I will say this. Yeah. There was a moment when we saw it in the theater when who's Jimmy Fallon's sidekick?
Higgins.
Higgins, where they're having the conversation with him in his dean's office. Mm-hmm. My daughter and I, we laughed our asses off. Like, we just found that funny. And I know that mileage will vary. I understand that.
Sure.
But I'm going to tell you, that scene where Kate McKinnon does the whole Holtzman and the theme kicks in a way you've never heard it used, that's incredible. Mm-hmm. That's it. He got it. He nailed exactly what that movie should have been. Unfortunately, just for that only and single moment in the entire movie, in my opinion. And that's unfortunate. But here's the part that gets me is when you see now, when you look at Afterlife, they could have been so close.
Oh, yes.
Dan Aykroyd's character could have been the same character, and he's driving a cab to make up for the rent for his occult shop.
Yeah.
Ernie Hudson could have, that's his job. He went off and, of course, he got into the funeral business. Of course he did, right? Like, Bill Murray easily could have gone back to doing his crazy cable show that he did.
That's right. Yeah, we saw that. We saw that in Ghostbusters 2. He could easily translated that into, whatever YouTube celebrity.
It's missing, and Pete is totally right, that the failure of that movie is it misses the anchor because, I mean, Kate McKinnon is amazing. She is amazing. She's incredible in that movie.
These are all four of them are some of the funniest human beings that are working right now.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
But it's missing the anchor. And I think what was most disappointing to me about that movie, especially then seeing them do it correctly, you could have been so close. You could have kept it within the universe. You would have had the anchor of all that nostalgia, and you could have done the same thing where, like, oh, people forgot. Yeah, because Ghost stopped, so everyone had to go off and do their things. But interestingly, they're still in jobs that are still connected in some way with stuff. You could have done all that, and you wouldn't have taken anything away from the women in those roles and how that all works. It's just it's a misfire. I mean, that's all.
However, in the creative DNA of things and how movies beget movies, I don't think you get Thor Ragnarok without Ghostbusters Answer the Call, because it showed us a Chris Hemsworth we had never seen before.
Oh, that's true.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point.
I mean, like I think Kate McKinnon is we are being deprived of some fantastic character work she could be doing in movies. but she has a steady job, and that's fine. But I think seeing him in that way, I think even Taika Waititi would like see that and go, oh, yeah, you can do that.
Yeah,
okay.
But do you see then? Okay, well, no, and I think, and he's another bright spot of the movie outside of everyone else too. I mean, I get that. It really speaks though. Like, so what didn't resonate with me about that movie is the connection to what I saw was a universe I wanted to spend more time in.
Yes.
I don't want to just see Dan Aykroyd show up. I want him to be the character. I want to know what happens. I want to see how that all works in. And again, this speaks to, I don't know, Ghostbusters is a unique lightning in a bottle moment for pop culture in that I don't know if the automobile. I mean, whenever all of us look back and we think of the great cars, I have all my little Playmobil collection. And what do I have? Yeah, there's the Back to the Future. Yeah, there's the A-Team van. Yeah, there's the Mystery Machine. But you know what? The number one always is the Ecto-1.
Ecto-1, yeah.
It just hit everything. And even that, like, there's another great example. Like, I don't need to see a late 80s Cadillac hearse with a stupid, huge yellow siren on it. That's not the Ectomobile, right? Like,
right.
No, they're just not tapping into the vein of what the blood that flows into our memories of what that was. I don't know.
So then we have Jason Reitman, son of Ivan Reitman, who directed the original one, who had, I think, not only did he have the same experience as us seeing the screen, but he actually got to be on set, walking around, playing around with this stuff, like sitting in the seat of Ecto-1, all these things. Like, so his fandom's on a different level too. And he then takes on the task of, how do you bring back Ghostbusters? How do you make it? And so what he does is make almost a wholly reverential film, where the original movie, which, I would say, like, when you mentioned Stripes, is a great example. It is much more similar to Stripes and movies of and Stir Crazy like movies of that era. This sort of, it's a kind of a down and dirty SNL
screwball comedy. It's a screwball comedy
with fantastic special effects.
Yes.
Like, I mean, but when they were making it, they were just thinking like, oh yeah, when I'm done with this, I'm going to go, and I'm going to go, do whatever the next in their filmography, whatever next wanted. They were not thinking in terms of franchise. I mean, like, nobody was at the time, but they were never meant to be a 4-quadrant film that hit all the bases that even children would love. I think they sort of were just like, yeah, it was fun, it was good. Okay, what's next? What are we doing now? They were sort of moving on, and even they come back together, the same crew, everyone to make it again, and can't do it again. Yeah. So then we flash forward to now, and then Jason Reitman says, okay, how do I approach this? And he sees the first film as in the same way that J.J. Abrams looks at A New Hope, when it's time to make Force Awakens as a holy document, as this is sacred, this is precious, I don't want to do it, so that every time something is introduced in Ghostbusters Afterlife, it is treated with awe. Like the first, it's a ghost trap. It's Ecto-1. It's whereas those were just the tools, these are just like the regular stuff. Now, after nostalgia, but even the Ghostbusters themselves would not treat any of this stuff with any of this kind of reverence. To be like, oh, they're just using that old junk? Really? Like, I mean, because they were blue collar guys dealing with it. So it's a weird tonal thing where it's a complex, broken family Midwestern drama through 3/4 of it. And then, like Pete was mentioning earlier on, then it takes this turn and becomes this incredible Ghostbusters movie for the last half hour. And it was like, but that's not the story you were telling.
I mean, what you started with was Jason was making E.T. and Close Encounters. The film work in this
very
movie,
Spielbergian,
very Spielberg. This was, if any, it's as much an homage to Ghostbusters '84 as it is to Spielberg. This is him unleashing all the depth of field tools he can possibly unleash, right? And that was really special. And I feel like part of the criticism that I've read about the movie is that the pacing up front is confusing for a Ghostbusters movie. It's not enough of a Ghostbusters. It's
not funny.
For me, it is.
There's very little ghosts.
Yeah, it's very little ghosts, but it's 100% what I loved about that part of the movie. I was so into that relationship, into the kids, into the struggles, between the mom kind of understand her kids at this point, and her financial struggles, and the fact that they moved into Egon's house, and that reveal was paced very, very well, even though you saw it coming from, their first drive up the driveway. That's all right. It felt good because they had my heart from jump, right? They had my heart from jump. So I was already into it. Now,
so you were the family drama thing, really resonated with you. You were really into that part of the story.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And because it was different, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't just another movie. They were trying something. They tried to swing big, and I think largely they did. I think that where the real debate comes in is, did they go too far at the end? Bringing in the old crew in uniform with the proton packs, for me, was a bridge too far. I think letting the kids win the day would have been enough. It would have been enough for me to see the phone call with Aykroyd. It would have been enough. Those hints would have been enough for me to let the story be the story about the kids that we started with. I think it was a little bit of a betrayal to the first 2/3 of the movie to do to bring in this. And I absolutely did not need to see Harold Ramis.
Oh, wow.
I didn't.
Okay.
I wished more than anything that they would have left him as the chess playing specter in the house, as the spirit of the house, and not let me see him. Let it be. If you're going to bring the Ghostbusters in, let them be reverential about the fact that he's not there. Yeah. That would have been special.
Okay. So I know, Rob, you're chomping at the bit because you want to talk about this stuff.
I can feel it.
So,
got to look at him.
Take me, start me from what your feelings are about the family drama that is most of the movie, and then lead up to how you felt about Egon as deadbeat dad.
I have to say, Pete, you ignorant slut. Listen, I just want to say that I all I kept saying to my head is, I got it. Don't interrupt. Now, look, here's something surprising. When I've watched it now multiple times, that whole those first two acts, right? And I know people say, oh, it's slow, or, it's a totally different kind of movie. Hold on a second. The whole opening of the movie is this action sequence that I think is brilliantly done. It sucked me so in when you realized it's Egon, and they do it a masterful visual way of, no, you can't totally see him. It's him, but that totally sucks me in.
When that started, sorry, I know you.
Sure.
You hold on to your point. When that started, I had the same feeling I had when I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when we got to the Manson killing, because I was like, are they really doing
yeah,
this?
they're really
and
doing
like the
this.
hair on my arms went up. I'm like, oh God. And then the same thing, whereas like once I saw what they were doing and like you saw the traps and all this kind of stuff, I was like, oh, and like this wave of relief when I'm like, oh, they didn't screw that up. Whoo, like, because that so easily could have derailed everything right at the start.
But then I'm shocked. So here's the moment I'm shocked at in the beginning of the movie is you see him die.
Yes.
Never in a million years would I have thought, one, if you had told me you were going to do that, I would have been like, oh God, please don't, because you're going to screw it up.
Yeah.
They don't. I think it's masterfully done, right? But here's the thing. When people talk it's slow, that happens. Whew, right? You start to see the ghost, the interactions with Phoebe and him and the ghost and stuff. Before that, she finds then the stuff, and then you got the summer school stuff, and they have the trap, and they've released the one demon dog, and then boom, she's with Podcast, and they're trying out the proton pack, and then they have the whole thing with Muncher, and there's the chase, and then there's the Walmart scene. It's not slow. Like, I would totally disagree. The first 2/3 of the movie, it is a fairly it is a great storytelling of a family drama with some comedy. There is a ton of action, way more than you think. And the reason why I'm going to say this is I thought it was slow the first time I saw it. And the second time I saw it, I went, oh, wow, this was not. I think I got so. There are certain movies I think that we have when you are a movie going person who really is trying to, I used to do this with Pixar movies. I didn't know how I felt about a Pixar movie the first time I saw it because I took so much in the first time I saw it that I had to see it again just to kind of get my arms around it. That's how this movie was to me. So I don't see it as being a slow movie. It's not there is a ton of action and a ton of great, scary, methodical, Ghostbustery scares in the first 2/3. So and that's just my opinion, but I will definitely not agree with in terms of the pacing. Now, the twist to the movie. Here's the deal of the final act. You can't. I only wanted to see one thing. And what I got was way beyond what I wanted. What I wanted to see was one final time when that sequence happens where the 4 of them are in profile, or the 3 of them, and the frame expands out and there's Egon. I needed to see that. I actually needed to see that. And once again, I will say this. Could they have screwed it up? Yes. If they had made him talk, it would have been a disaster.
I agree. If they tried to do the Luke
if
thing,
they would have done anything, no. And you know what? This is one of the few times that you could actually resurrect someone, a living person, in that because the spiritual effects, it is perfect. They did it perfectly. That is not necessarily what Harold Ramis may have looked like had he been alive today for the movie, but it's what he would have wanted to look like.
Yeah.
That is, and his kids have said that. That is exactly how he would have wanted to be seen. And I think it provided me, my heart soared. I have no qualms telling people the first time I saw it, that hand comes around and grabs her, and it doesn't take away from the kids. The kids just, they're up against something. They're way out of their space. They're out of their space of what they need to know to do what they have to do. He's just there to steady your hand. That's what I loved about it. It wasn't them taking it over. He's there to steady your hand so that she can do the job. And then, they all have moments where they all come in and create this what is the finale of the movie. I've been telling you, it's perfect. I don't know if it could have been done any better. It is, to me, the greatest spirit scene ever. Prior to this, it was Goblet of Fire. That scene to me is always the scene in all 7 movies of Harry Potter.
Yeah.
That is the scene that, to me, represents the entire Harry Potter story. It is so well done. And he is in that graveyard. He's scared. He's facing the guy that caused all of his anger, hatred, and suffering. He is ready to take him on. He's scared. He doesn't think he can. He witnessed a guy just get killed. And the 2 people that he has been wanting to see this whole time are now speaking with him and interacting with him. And this moment of, I can do this because you've been with me the whole time and I didn't even know it. There's a whole world that I didn't even realize existed. This goes beyond that because, again, and I love the fact that they have the conversation earlier in the movie where Phoebe's like, I don't believe in ghosts. And now she's face to face with not just it's not about the grandfather she didn't know. It's face to face with the grandfather who represents why she is the way she is. And that she can finally connect with her family, and she can embrace fully who she is and be joyful about that and do the things she's supposed to do in the world. And then the resolution, it is a great story about sometimes the people act the ways and they do in their life. It isn't because of the reasons we know, because we can't see them. I found that to be incredibly compelling. I thought it was an incredible tribute to Harold Ramis. I thought it was beautiful how Bill Murray, again, little nuance here. If you know this history about Bill Murray and Harold Ramis, I love, he gets the funny joke at the beginning. Oh, I thought you'd show up. But then there is no other comment. It's him just nodding. I get it. Cool. I'm glad we made everything right before you were gone. It's perfection. I don't know.
I was lucky enough to see it in theaters, which I know you guys were too. And I can tell you that I got to see it on the Wednesday before it came out, which is not a brag. I'm saying because we didn't know anything at that point. Like we sort of had seen the preview, but we did not know about Ghost Egon or any of that kind of stuff. And the feeling in that small, because it was a sneak preview, essentially packed theater, was love. I mean, like when that moment happened, everyone cheered. So like I remember seeing like Batman v Superman, and the first time you like see, Batman and Superman, and it was just like, and it was a packed theater opening night, and it was like, not just crickets. I mean, just like it was people just like, okay, like, and the whole movie, everybody was just like, yeah, all right. Sure.
Well, what about Martha? Yeah. Then did everyone go?
That's right. As much as people say now, at the time it was like, huh? Like that. But in that movie, when that happens, it was like this. There was this gasp when the hand comes out, and when you see him, everybody just like you could just feel this wave of like, oh my! And through the whole thing, like when seeing the four of them together, people were cheering, and like I say, like that, the level of intensity and emotion of that, I would put next to like Cap catching Thor's hammer.
Oh, absolutely.
That like people just didn't even like it's that gut response like, oh, I didn't know that I wanted to see this, but I did, and now I feel it. What was your experiences like when you saw it in theaters with a crowd? Was there anything?
Well, I also went into the movie without any expectation of like I wasn't spoiled on who was going to show up, and I knew that something was going to show up, and honestly, I guess now you guys are making me feel like an island. Let me just lower my seat.
No, I would say with this, everyone has their own.
I'm going to do it from down here.
Their own responses to this stuff. This is why I wanted to have you guys on, because
I feel better on the floor.
Different reactions to different things. I like say even after Rob said stuff, I have to watch it again. I did not like the family drama part of it. Like I thought McKenna Grace as Phoebe was fantastic. She is the heart of this movie.
Absolutely.
I thought Podcast was like a little bit. Okay, this is an old person trying to write what a kid today is. Okay. And I thought the mom was so one note. I felt so sorry for the actress, because I'm like, wow, they gave you one note. I'm angry at my dad, and that's it. Every scene she plays angry at her dad, angry at, I'm like, really? They give you nothing else? Paul Rudd is Paul Rudd. What can you do? So I have my own thing. So don't worry, we're not all unified in our feelings about this. So go ahead.
Well, the last piece I wanted to say is, in terms of taking nostalgia too far in that the sort of experience of that third act, going down the same road of Gozer, the Gozerian, and and the Keymaster, I felt like I could have used some new narrative there. Like I didn't need to do that. I saw it. I saw it in a refrigerator. I saw it on top of the building in New York. Yeah. I didn't need that again, and they did that again, and it didn't. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a Casablanca moment, right? Like, you hate me, don't you? Well, if I gave you any thought, I probably would. I did, like that was kind of a low point narratively for me, because I was so into the characters. I kind of let it go.
I wish they had done a little bit more of the lore that would too, because if you're going to make this movie, because if you're doing like a group of inexperienced people who get these tools, don't know how to use them, go up against terror dogs, and then fade off against Gozer. Wow, we've seen that exact movie. Like, what are you doing differently? And part of it I think should have been that this is the second attempt. So like, tell me about even Shandor. Tell me about what was he doing? What was the plan? What does he get out of this thing? Maybe even have him in the movie. Oh wait, they did. They cast J.K. Simmons and kill him off in the first minute of his screen time.
Oh, it was so frustrating. Yeah. No,
why? That was baffling to me.
He's a MacGuffin. He's the MacGuffin. He's nothing.
You don't cast J.K. Simmons as a MacGuffin. You cast J.K. Simmons, give him a lot to do, and then go, you know what? It's third act. Just cut all of that.
Yeah.
That's all lore. Nobody cares about that. Just cut it.
I can't believe I'm going to say this. I gave it all a pass except for one thing. When the mom rips the dress off and it's the glittery dress. And I was like, man, that doesn't hit the way you thought it was going to hit. No, that's not cool. You didn't have to do that. I'm okay with the rest because, well, we get it. It's established. This is how Gozer does it. And yeah, I mean, like, I thought they actually did a decent job. The podcast is going through the book and they understand that. I'm okay with that because it wasn't at the top of a 30-story building. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they did try to make this different. And I think you got this with the dates. You can see that there had been multiple attempts. Right. I'm okay with all that. The dress, no, that was too far for me. I draw the line at a glittery dress that comes out of nowhere.
That's your line. That is very telling.
Yeah, you're right about the dates. The date was a nice touch because my questions these things is why now?
Right.
And so they actually directly answer that, as opposed to it's because this is when the studio agreed to do it. That's why now. They actually had something in the lore that said it's a cyclical thing, and this is the next one.
And make no mistake when I say this, I'm okay with this for the reset. But if they do another one and it has Vigo in it, I'm going to be upset.
Really?
Yeah, because that to me will be you're going way, you're retreading way too much.
Now you have no ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I absolutely. No, I would agree with that. Like, it has to be something else.
Yeah, I agree. This is a bit of a deep cut, but they hired someone to do a final Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book that wasn't Douglas Adams. And it was, and no offense to the guy, but all he did was just pick 3 or 4 things from the previous books and then wrote about that. And it was like, oh, okay, I see what you did. But yeah, it's a whole universe out there. You can go farther. And so, I agree. I hope the next one is something different.
And I love the Vigo. I love that whole storyline. Just, okay, no. Now you got to do something different. So I'm okay with all of this, with the passing of the torch. I understand. I mean, look I don't know if you guys know this, but if you've watched any of the like hardcore Ghostbuster channels on YouTube, they shredded this movie.
Did they really?
Like, there were people, they shredded it. They thought bringing Egon back was just a capital crime. They thought it was completely, they totally were not happy with it.
That's interesting that it comes out, it hits us, who I guess are the casual fans, like right dead center. It does well at the box office, so it goes after anyone else who saw it does it. But the hardcore ones are the ones who don't like it, and that doesn't seem to be a problem.
That's
not usually the way that story goes.
Well, no, and again, because Ghostbusters is different. Because I will say Ghostbusters is different. And even with all that said, I think that they have got, because McKenna Grace does such an amazing job in this movie, and a good supporting cast as well. But I can see them. You can build an entire 2 more movies around her. She did such a good job. That character is so compelling to me. And
she needs a Venkman.
Well, she needs a Venkman.
If she's an Egon, she needs a Venkman.
But I love the fact that they can wait a couple of years, or which maybe they won't, but like let her grow, like let her actually grow up and grow, and the role will grow with her. I'm very happy. I'm very happy.
So circling back to what you just said though, Pete, so the ending part didn't land for you.
Right.
So like, can you talk a little bit more about like what it is that like, was it just tweaking and fine tuning, or?
No, I think it's because of what we're already sort of leaning into it, which is this idea that if we're going to do this thing with this property that we already know, and we're going to introduce it to a new generation. Why do we have to lean so like forehead first into exactly what was in the original? And I think that was my challenge. And I fully own that I went into this movie and the other movies that we're going to talk about shortly, I assume, with
there's a pivot coming.
Fully burdened with expectation, right? But I want to see that movie that Rob's talking about with McKenna Grace as Egon and Finn Wolfhard as Goofy Mechanic and Paul Rudd as Gruberson, the multi-generational team that they're bringing together to now fight. I want to see that movie, and damn it, I wanted to see it this time. Yeah. Right? I didn't want to see Gozer the Gozerian again. I didn't need to see the original Ghostbusters quite as heavily. I wanted a new thing, and they gave me not a new thing, and that is the cancer we have on reheats right now, on these requels that I'm struggling with. So
see, this is why I bring Pete on, because he throws me something like that, which is the perfect pivot point.
Pace yourself.
We could talk about Ghostbusters forever, but like now we're going to swing around and talk about when nostalgia doesn't quite hit the same way. And so let's talk about The Matrix. Okay, so we've just on the heels of a huge Matrix sequel, which was not as reverentially received by either hardcore or casual fans. And so, okay, so before we do that, let's talk about our feelings about The Matrix. So obviously we were much older by the time Matrix hit, so it doesn't get you in the same way. But like, what was your feeling about The Matrix when it first came out? Rob, I'll start with you.
Well,
back in 99.
99. So, and again, if you didn't live it, we're on the cusp of, the millennium's coming. A little tiny bit worried about what is technology going to do to us because of the Y2K issue that everyone had talked about, right?
Yep.
So that was real. I mean, like, that was a real thought in people's heads who were in tech. You had this movie come out that was like, groundbreaking graphics, the whole camera systems they were using and everything else. I go to see it, and I'm blown away. Like, I think as a lot of people were, this is amazing. And just the whole idea of what is reality and go into how conscious are you in life? I mean, which, that's what spoke to me about it. But I think this. I was thrilled with the movie as a one and done. I thought it was a complete story. I thought it was incredibly well done. I thought it did a great job. It was incredible visuals, great characters. Hugo Weaving. I mean, I couldn't get that the way that portrayal out of my head for a long time. I was good. Like, that was it. It ended when he goes flying off into the sky.
Yeah.
Off the building. Like, done. I'm done. That was great. Way to go. That was it.
Yeah. What about you, Pete?
No,
how did the Matrix hit you?
Your men are already dead. I mean, I was transformed by that movie, right? Yeah. Like, I felt like that movie was doing things and was intentionally inventing ways to make movies that would change the way movies were made, right?
Yes.
It was big.
Boy, 99.
Ambitious.
99 was a hot year for that kind of stuff. Because, like, even just Matrix, Fight Club, and American Beauty. Yeah. Like, my God.
Right.
I mean, you could go on, but I'm sorry.
Really could.
But it was just like that, whatever was in the water that year changed everything.
Yeah, and they happened to get a pitch perfect, like just perfect cast for this particular story. The effects, the stunt work, they had, magic in a bottle with the first movie. And I am, perhaps I'm not I don't truck in the hardcore Matrix channels, but I don't love the last two movies as much as I loved the first one, but I did not hate them. And when you look at each one of the movies, they push something forward in a new way. All three of the movies do something that is extraordinary in the art and spectacle of filmmaking. And I appreciate the entire trilogy for that. And I burned myself by walking into this Resurrections with the weight of those expectations. And that hurt me. I hear so many people are saying, I don't know why people don't like Resurrections as much. I don't understand that perspective.
Oh, okay. So, for me, that was during sort of when I was eating, sleeping, and breathing movies. So this is like out of college, basically like living on my own for the first time with my roommate who was my best friend at the time. All we did was movies. Like, that was basically, we would go out like every Friday. We'd be like, okay, we're gonna see the 7:00 show of this, then we're gonna see the 9:00 show of this, then on Saturday morning we're gonna see this. I mean, like, whatever came out, we were going to see it and talk about it endlessly, over breakfast. Like it was, everything was about movies at the time. So like we had just come out of seeing a sneak preview of the Blair Witch, the previous, week when everybody thought it was real. I mean, like, so like we were just living that life. So when this movie comes out and nobody knew anything what it was, because the whole marketing of the movie was, what is the Matrix? Even that was the original website, is what is the Matrix? And there's all these cool images, but no one told you. Like, you just went in completely blank, which is kind of amazing now, to like not go in not knowing who the heck these directors are. You knew it was Keanu Reeves from a couple of different, like from Speed. Okay. But everybody else was pretty much an unknown. To go into this universe and just experience this for the first time, I feel bad for people who like watch it on their phones now. Like I took my daughter to see it on the big screen because I'm like, wanted to get her something close to having that exploration, the surprise of not knowing all this stuff, even though so much of it has permeated in pop culture. Like, you can't watch Star Wars: A New Hope clean now because it's infected everything, and Matrix is the same way. Everything comes after it is about that. So this is everything. Things have changed now too. And I kind of agree with you, Rob. Like, I feel like at the end of the first movie, it opens up such a possibility that like our minds were blown, like, what happens now? And then the sequel came out and we're like, that's not what should happen now. So you have two sequels that come out, filmed back to back, some amazing sequences. Even I can't remember who it is. One of my friends was saying, you cannot like Matrix 2, but you cannot argue about how awesome the fight scene on the highway is. Right. Like, one of the best action scenes of all time. Like, even now.
Changes the way people made movies since then, right? That's one of those sequences. They learned things that have impacted every movie since then that has a big stunt sequence in it.
Yeah. I remember coming out of like seeing those two, and I would ask, so like, oh, so what are they like? I was like, well, they're more. So everything that was in the Matrix is in those sequels. It's just more. It's like more action, but also more philosophy, more really long conversations that you wonder, why the heck is this in this movie? I mean, everything is more. As I've sort of have went back and looked at them now, I realized, sort of seeing what the Wachowskis did afterwards, and then having one of the Wachowskis come back to make this new Matrix movie. I don't know. I kind of think they don't understand what we want from a Matrix movie. It's in the same way that, like, there's things that we loved about Star Wars, and then we went and saw the prequels and went, oh, I know you're the same guy, and I know you came up with all of this, but this isn't what we like. Like, and I know there's a little bit of fan entitlement, which becomes part of this thing, because obviously they made this movie again essentially for people like us who like the Matrix is super important to us. We went to this movie because it had the words "The Matrix" in front of it. Like, but
because Kyle, they tried to make
the Wachowskis made two sequels that were bad Matrix copies.
Yeah, and they tried to make their favorite movie that wasn't a Matrix movie, and they did it twice. And once it was Cloud Atlas, and then it was Jupiter Ascending, and then they realized we just need to keep putting the Matrix on stuff. And I think that's really. But what's so fascinating about this is people complain about we hear all of this. Oh, this is an unknown director getting a major, massive property. I mean, these people made Bound before the Matrix,
to show like, oh yeah, we can make a movie.
And then they got the Matrix. Like, it was a massive pivot to go to this property, and so I mean, there's a lot of baggage that is earned over the course of their early Matrix work.
But do you think? Okay, so here's one thing. This is a theory I have, right? I think any movie, any story that people want to tell, there's two things that are either happening, right? And yes, it can be sometimes both, but it's really just two things. One, I want to make you laugh. I want to make you scared. I want to make you cry, or I want to make you, I want to make your heart swell. I want to do a combination of those things. Or I have something to say. The Matrix was I have something to say.
Yeah, and also the Matrix Resurrections is also about I have something to say. But different thing. But go ahead.
But here's the issue. No.
You're making an excellent point, so I don't want to.
No. That's cool. No, so like the two sequels of the Matrix. oh, I want to make you feel like you felt in the first movie. It's not anything more to say, right?
Interesting.
I want to make you feel like you felt there. That's the problem with them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The Resurrections, yeah, they got something to say, and also I want to make you feel like you felt, and for me, it faltered on all counts. So I just and I had a very interesting time watching it, which we'll probably talk about, because there were just things that screamed at me that was like, oh no, I'm out, and then I
yeah.
I was actually surprised you were going to be a part of this part of the conversation, because when we were texting opening weekend, you watched 20 minutes of it, and that was you were.
Well, you'll hear the story. Well, there's a story about that anyway, but yeah.
The original Matrix is full of tons of interesting ideas about identity, about technology, about philosophy, and like what is the self, what is real, what is the soul, all these kind of things. In addition, there's a really amazing action in it, like these crazy anime-inspired, over-the-top fight kind of stuff. And they make the sequels. They take all that stuff that makes the Matrix cool, and they just sort of like pull all that stuff back and then push more ideas in. So the sequels end up becoming more of like a class where it's like, yeah, there's interesting moments, but like mostly we're just gonna learn you some stuff. And it's like the thing that was awesome about the Matrix is they found a reason why people like this was like not an age of superheroes. Like, we live in an age where, you've got Captain Marvel flying through the sky and you've got all these things. But this was a time that Blade was really the only viable superhero at the time. And that was it. And so he was just a guy with a sword. Like, he wasn't flying around anything. So now that you found a way to have people doing incredible over-the-top, jumping there, flipping that, dodging bullets kind of stuff, and you gave a reason for why they could do that, and you're like, oh, great. And so most of the action in the sequels is set in the real world where none of that stuff matters. But why? Like, you spend all this time showing us why you could do awesome stuff, and why would you go out and so it's
made a playground and then won't let me play in it.
Yes, exactly. And so and they come to this one. They I always interested in like what. So back to intention. So intention. There's a couple films I think have come out, and I'm hoping, Pete, you can either disagree with me or you can find other examples where it feels like the filmmaker is punishing the audience for wanting the movie that they just paid to see. The one that comes to mind is Prometheus. Like, Prometheus seems like, oh, like, you won't let me do all this other stuff? Well, fine. Here's your alien movie. Like, I don't want to do this, but apparently this is what gets money. So here, alien, space Jesus, alien, water. There you go. Run from the space donut. I mean, like, this is the whole thing about that. But yeah, there's a couple movies out there I feel that they didn't want to do it, but they got the money for it, and they're gonna make sure that they know.
Well, here's an
they want us to know they didn't want to do this.
Yeah,
and screw you for wanting this, but here it is.
I don't know. I don't want to ascribe malicious intent on the part of Ridley Scott and team. I certainly wouldn't go down that path myself. But this, I get your point, because this movie, the resurrections
has to be an R, right?
I feel that in that opening act, that mind-bendy, not just a nod and a wink to the sequel, but a nod and a wink and a punch in the groin kind of heavy-handedness that I feel like it was made in an attempt to be such a heavy personal message to the studio, to the fans, to the that this is this isn't the movie you want, but it's the movie you deserve. That's the kind of snub that I felt like I was getting out of this movie, and I didn't love it. Not to mention the fact that it was a convoluted mess.
Yes.
Right. Let's just, when you take Ghostbusters and you look at the art and craft of filmmaking, and then you go to this and see a rehash of the skills that we learned in the last three movies, and we don't really have any great new story beats, and we haven't really taught Neo anything new.
No.
There are no big level ups laughs that we get out of this movie that we got in the first one. We're just going to do the same thing, but we're going to put different people in those roles, and we're going to have them just kind of talk alike, but wear different suits. And don't worry, you'll get it. Don't worry, you'll get it. By the end, you'll get it. Maybe I got it, but I certainly didn't care.
Go ahead, Rob.
Here, I'm going to tell the story. I turn it on. I wasn't excited about this because, again, the first movie's enough for me, right? I start watching it, and immediately I'm like, oh, well, this is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. They have a game, so now the movie exists.
Oh God, I wish
game.
it had been.
No, you know what I mean? Like immediately, and that's
I wish there had been more of Wes Craven's New Nightmare in this.
But I also was like, oh wow, that's where we're going with this. And then when it's within the first 15 minutes, he gets the flash of himself and he's the old man, and I'm like, okay, all right. When he shows up in the bathroom and it's not Lawrence Fishburne, I'm like, okay, I don't understand that because you're messing with me. And I understand that there may be practical reasons why that is, but then don't make the movie, right? I'm literally, this is literally what's going on in my head. Like, you know what? No. And I don't like this Morpheus. I'm whatever. And then this is what happened. Okay. Yeah. I had a moment of super wokeness or whatever you want to call it. They get on the train in Japan, and this is the absolute truth. I see everyone on the train wearing masks, and it wasn't that I was like, oh, it's an Asian. I understand that, right? But
you didn't until I pointed it out.
No, I did. No. But here's why I got sucked in was because they're all having masks that we're all wearing. Like it's everyone's different, and there's some cloth ones and customized ones, everything else. And I literally sat there and went, "You're telling me the pandemic is part of the Matrix? Off." And that's when I texted you and said, "I'm out." Mm-hmm. I'm out.
You didn't have to do that. The masks that did it.
And yes, because I literally said,
I find the list long and distinguished of things that would have made me turn off this movie.
After that metatextual conversation of like what the Matrix is about in the Matrix.
I just want to say this.
Oh no, it's a metaphor. It's about commercialism.
And here's the thing is because you know what, you didn't. That was so visceral to me living in this time, watching this movie, that I went, no, you know what? I was on the edge, and that's what absolutely knocked me off the edge. Nah, I don't care about this movie now. I don't care what happens. He was dead. Dude, I don't give a shit, right? Like, okay, here's the thing. And then you guys are all like, no, you need to watch it. I'm like, okay, fine. I watch it. And I still think okay. I mean, no, I got nothing from it. This movie is constantly every day being expunged from my nether regions of the long-term memory of my brain, right? But I will say I enjoyed
sure don't need to hear more about your nether regions.
Well, the dark recesses I meant to say. I don't know why I said nether regions.
I don't need to be a part of that conversation.
I mean, either place is dark.
A
little moist. So here's the deal. I enjoyed the conversation he has with Niobe, Jada Pinkett Smith's character. Mm-hmm. Where it actually explained what happened, because I'm like, how do you beat this? Just turn all the machines off. Like, I mean, like, come on, right? When they had that conversation, I went, oh, I like this. I really thought the effects of the action sequence where it was kind of like the Fast and the Furious, where people in Fast and the Furious where they started throwing self-driving cars out to like knock people down. And here it was like, no, we'll just take people over and throw them out. Yeah. I mean, it got you. Like you were watching that going.
But it was like an uncommitted beat. It was like this is the coolest set piece in the entire movie, and you're just like whipping it at us. Like it was just so fast, and like there was no weight to what was actually happening.
I know, but I
that was also a false note to me, because the whole point of the Matrix at the beginning was secrecy. Yeah. Like the whole they dress as government agents. They don't dress as robots.
Now I like it less.
Well, because they're trying to keep it a secret. But like once you start, suiciding hundreds of people, and to do that, well, then you don't have to follow those rules anymore.
Oh yeah, now it's all
you could
over.
Just have literally just have 1,000 tanks appear and just blow that. You could nuke the city. Like if there's no secrecy, then what is the point of doing any of the agenty things of hopping from person to person and everything? Like you're not trying to keep the secret anymore. So
you're right.
Why are we even bothering with it? No. This it goes back to Inception. You have to dream a little bigger, darling.
Yes.
There's nothing. Yeah. Yes. I just, there's nothing for the rest of this. There's not, Neil Patrick Harris I did not care for that. This movie's a big nothing to me. It's a nothing burger.
I want to go back, though, to this central question that I have been mulling around, which is, what is it that would have grabbed my heart? Because Ghostbusters grabbed my heart. And when you talk about weaponizing nostalgia, right, you can do that for good or ill. And I think Ghostbusters did it for good. And this one did it for ill. This one entrapped me in my nostalgia for the property and did not live up to the title. And I find that very frustrating. So what is it, and I'm not armchair rewriting the movie at all. I'm just wondering, where did it lose me? Like, what could they have done to somehow bring it back? I think the story is for me is flawed. I didn't need Neo back. I think they just he was really dead. He was super dead. Yeah. And so, I think all of that was just, it made it feel less like an authentic Matrix experience. When you call something a money grab, this is kind of the dictionary definition of it for me. This character was super dead, and now it's not, and we're going to try and make you believe that that's authentic, and I did not.
When I first saw this, and I saw it before either of you guys, and so you asked me for my little thing, and my thing was I compared it to Ghostbusters Afterlife because I feel like it doesn't become the movie it's supposed to be until the last 20 minutes, and I think the last 20 minutes works. Because despite all of this, everything that we said, I do not disagree with anything you guys have said all the way. I think the Trinity Neo love story at the end works, and it got to me. And I saw it in the theater with a bunch of people, and they had that not quite the Ghostbuster reaction, and it was also a smaller crowd, but because they didn't do the midnight show because it was on a Wednesday, so it was like a Wednesday 1:00 show. So even though it was on a holiday, so there were still more people, but. When they got together and Trinity says my name is Trinity and stuff too, the people really cheered and loved it. So I feel like the relationship thing that really works, but trying to convince me that you told a good love story in the first 3 Matrix movies, I'm not buying it because you didn't care about Trinity at all.
Yeah, right. And let me just say, if we've learned any lessons from this movie in particular, it's that one does not cast Jonathan Groff and Neil Patrick Harris in the same movie and not let them work together.
Well, I agree with that. And also, how about just giving them a new character? Why is he Smith?
Why is he Smith?
Of all the Matrix, anything in the terms of the Matrix leadership code, there's no way they would put Smith back in there when he almost destroyed the entire thing. Yes, let's give the guy who almost wiped out the entire mainframe. Let's put him back in a position of authority. Yeah. No.
I didn't need so all of that is I feel like the nostalgia took advantage of me in the Matrix where I didn't feel that with it. But I do want to throw in, just as an aside, as we keep going, I was under the impression that we had homework, and that was to go see Scream 2022, and that I'm the only one who did my homework. And so you have to at least indulge me for a moment.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Because
please.
That movie exists, I think, between these two.
Okay.
And I think what it does exceptionally predictably is that it's a Scream movie, right? It is a Scream movie. It is an homage to every Scream movie that's come since. It's it is the next thing.
In the way that Scream was an homage to all the other slasher movies that had come before.
The slasher movies that come before it.
Right.
It has created this sort of, the Scream cinematic universe, whatever you want to say. You know what you're going to get. There are rules. There's going to be a monologue about the rules. In this movie, one of our principal characters, who is fantastic, whose name is Jasmine Savoy Brown, plays Mindy Meeks Martin in this movie, and she does a monologue to the rest of the cast that lays out exactly what we're talking about here, the perils of the requel. And talks about, what are the dangers of the requel, and how do you cast, who do you expect, who's the killer, who's the victim. Right. And that meta play is really fun. They do bring back our 3 central characters, right? They bring back Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox and David Arquette, and they don't overdo it. It feels like a very natural embrace of the storyline so far. At the same time, the movie's about the new cast. I love the new cast. They're great. They're great young actors. They do a fantastic job. We've got Jack Quaid is in it, and Jenna Ortega. The opening gambit of Scream movies is that you have the first kill. They don't kill her. She ends up living and being maimed. That's a twist in a Scream movie. So I would say that Scream has taken my nostalgia for the original Scream movie and horror movies writ large, slasher movies writ large, and they have done the wink and a nod thing to me as an audience member in a way that is super satisfying. And I had a blast at this movie.
Okay.
An absolute
you
blast.
didn't feel the cynicism. You didn't feel like another Scream movie?
I didn't.
I think I saw Scream 3. I haven't seen Scream 4. And I was like, okay, this is done.
You don't need to. In fact, I think you could see Scream 1 and then Scream 5. Yeah.
Because I hadn't heard any spoiler stuff too, because obviously part of the thing of a Scream movie is the reveal, is the twist. It's like you don't want to know going in. So all I ask is don't tell us exactly what that was.
No, and I'm not. And that's why that as far as I'm going to say is what you learn in the first 5 minutes of the Scream movie is she lives, and that becomes an interesting part of the plot.
Yeah.
But the rest of it is absolutely this could be the spiritual sequel directly to Scream 1. You don't need to see the rest of the movies, and I think it locks.
Would you like compare it to like the Halloween to Halloween thing?
Well, I like these movies. I think better. So I don't know.
Well,
I don't know
in the way
that's
that the poorly named Halloween one from a couple of years ago was a direct sequel to the original Halloween.
Yeah, I would.
Thing,
I think
ignored everything else in between.
There are a couple of characters that do have more interplay from the second Scream movie.
Okay,
but those are side characters in this one, and you know most of it is just like, hey, this happened, and a lot has happened in the last 25 years. And now there's this other thing that's happening again. And we acknowledge all of the wink and a nod stuff, but we're going to make this movie and we're going to make you second guess every corner. I would liken it to, you get these movies where that somebody's going to open a closet door and they're going to rifle around in the closet, and then they're going to close the door and there's going to be somebody behind that door, and it's going to be a malevolent figure. And then in the sequel, they're going to open the closet door, and then they're going to close it, and nobody's there. Then they're going to open the refrigerator door, and then they're going to close it, and then there's a malevolent figure behind the fridge, because it's a sequel. Yeah. This movie is like the joke that is told so much that it's annoying, and then it finally comes back around to being funny again, right?
It's the ninth rake. Isn't it is the Simpsons thing when they
it's the ninth rake. That's exactly what it is, and it works. It locks for me, and we got jumps, and it is more brutal than any of the other Scream movies. There are some excruciating kills in the movie that I think are visceral and fantastic. I think Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett are the directors behind this one, and I think they did a fantastic job. So I think it fits into this conversation because it also exists. It's been a long time since the last Scream movie, and certainly since the last Scream movie that tried to have a meta message that was bigger than itself. And I think this one really works.
I guess so. We've seen remakes. Like there was that whole period, I guess, mid 2000s, I think Total Recall kind of thing, where they're like, we're going to take the same movie, we're just going to like remix it a little bit, throw it, and we're going to serve it at you again, and then we're going to throw in an homage to the movie you liked. We're going to put a line or whatever, and then there you go. It's a new movie, but it's also the thing. You get best of both worlds, and I think most of those are terrible and do not work on their own or as a sequel thing. And so we've seen that, and then we've seen the sort of the straight up sequel where they try and do a little bit of it, and now we have, this is sort of like the third wave of serving our culture back to us. So like, is there a fourth wave coming, or is this it? Are we just going to like rotate between these three things over and over again? Like, like I guess the middle one, I guess that I didn't say it would be like where they have it, but it turns out that wink nudge, it was actually in the same universe, like the Mod Squad or whatever, where it's like you think it's version an A, but it's actually a B because one character shows up and goes, Or like the Charlie's Angels that they just recently did.
Right.
Where like they had the television series and then they made a movie of it, 2 movies. And then they did another one and you think it's on its own. And then, there are homages. So it's in the same, having your cake and eating it too. And then we have this one where it's about how much we love that movie. So we're going to make that movie again. I would say Jurassic World is that movie. Like you love Jurassic Park. Now here's Jurassic Park again. We're just going to change some of the stuff around. And then you have Jurassic World.
I'm going to tell you.
I guess where are we going?
And here's the answer. No one knows because everything's different. Like there are no rules applied to this. And I think you can see that not only the ones we discussed, but here we're going to discuss it. I'll throw in something else.
Sure.
Imagine a character that we all adored when we were children or teens from a franchise that we all adore. And we adored that character, and we adored everything about that character, even though we knew nothing about that character.
Oh,
and then now they make an entire TV show about that character, and most people are like, "Yeah, that's not the way I thought he was." And then, by the way, the last episode at the time of recording of that show that had that character not in it, that's the best episode of the season of that show.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the Book of Boba Fett.
Doesn't appear,
right? On paper, that should have been amazing.
There's a tweet I saw, and I wish I knew who it was that said it. So I'm giving credit, even though I'm not doing a very good job of it. That said, fans upset that that character not living up to the tattoo on their left arm.
Right? We have a character that said 3 lines. We knew nothing about. He had a punk death. And we all just, in our imaginations,
Epic Rap Battles History, I believe, said you had 5 lines in the trilogy, and one of them was,
because Han hit him in the back, and apparently there's an on switch on his rocket pack. Like, what? Listen, let me just say, none of this makes sense because it is different. Everything is different. And you know what? I hate to say this. Yes, there's talent. Yes, there's a good story to be told. Yes, you can decide what story you want to tell. There's a little bit of luck involved, too.
Oh, absolutely. Because we saw, like, if you talk about Mandalorian versus Boba Fett, and I know getting into any Star Wars thing, sure. I'm going to try and keep the lid on this can of worms. Right. But the Mandalorian itself is a new character in a new situation. But every episode is like nostalgia porn because they're just like, oh, remember this? Remember this? Right? Like, what about this character? What about that? Like all these little things. I mean, like there's the meme that goes around of a picture of kids playing with a bunch of Star Wars toys from the 80s. And it says, this is, Favreau and Filoni writing Mandalorian. And it's like the kids playing with the toys.
And I will say this in terms of the waves. When you say like, how many waves are there left of this? We're all of us who are in our late 40s or early 50s, guess what? Barring any other things that happen in the world, we still all got about 20 to 30 years left. Honestly, that's how much longer. Is somebody going to make another Jurassic Park movie that's a remake of Jurassic World? Like, are we like how far will the snake eat its own tail?
Solar system.
As long as we've got
spacefaring dinosaurs.
As long as there's IP to be exploited.
As long as there's money in our pockets to spend on it. That's what.
Obviously Disney is doing a ton of this, just like taking making animated into live action and then calling it new.
But, as long as they find a way to grab my heart, I will continue to pay for it. Yeah, Scream grabbed my heart, right?
Totally.
True.
The Matrix did not. This one. So I think that's really the issue. There is a sensitivity to just straight up filmmaking that allows me to let go and of that cynicism and just see a movie for the joy of filmmaking. And I do enjoy going back to the well occasionally for these things. I'm with Rob. I was one and done with The Matrix, but I don't hate that the other 2 exist.
Right.
Note, I'm not crazy that the 4th one exists, but I don't think we needed that one. But I hope somebody gets their heart taken away by that movie. It's just not mine.
You can't hit if you don't swing.
Right.
There's going to be more good ones, and there's going to be more things that don't hit the mark. You got to still try.
And that's where we bring our conversation to a close. I'd like to thank Pete Wright and Rob Kubasko for coming on to the show and batting these ideas around with me. Made me feel a little better to know that they were thinking along some of the same lines as I was. And thank you for indulging my curiosity. Go do something nice for yourself. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the next chapter in the Curiosity Codex, but there are still many pages left to decipher. We're part of the True Story FM family of podcasts. Find out more about us at truestory.fm. Our theme music is Intrusion by Severed Personality, aka Kevin MacLeod. The voice of the Codex is Vicky Hall. Find her on the web at vickyhall.squarespace.com. And my name is Kyle Olson.
The Codex is closed. For now.